Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Loki Season 2 was filled with countless design details that made every shot of the series a full meal to feast upon. The designers who work at Perception are one of the groups of visual effects artists who work on Marvel titles, including many of the opening and closing credits that you know and love, and specifically on Loki. If you watch New Rockstars, you know the closing credits might be the most fun part to pull apart, to find cool details, and I am so honored to be here with artists from Perception. I'm here with Doug Appleton, Chief Creative, and Greg Herman, Creative Supervisor from Perception, who worked on Loki. Welcome, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having us. I'm so excited to hear that in real time because I love watching these videos. So
Totally,
it's a treat.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us, Erik.
And this video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes launching your own website a breeze. Well, it's so great to be here with you. Your team posted this really cool breakdown on the Perception website that just kind of like went through some of the cool work that you did that opened my eyes because, you know, when I go through these, there's so much imagery and you don't know like how much of it was just pulled from like stock imagery. With you guys, it sounds like you recreated a Loki workspace or TVA workspace, correct? For the closing credits?
Yeah, so that's in Greg's basement. We recreated a TVA workspace because we had done Loki season 1, was done during the pandemic. So like we couldn't go anywhere to shoot or do anything. And, you know, Greg is a wildly, wildly talented person. So
thanks, Doug.
We had he had built this all in his basement and shot it all himself in North Carolina, and that was kind of the process. So I'm sure if Greg could move a camera, you'd see just a bunch of Loki stuff next to him.
Do you want me to bust it out? I was saving it. I was gonna.
All right, yeah.
I was gonna take a quick sip of this 800 BC year old coffee. Really.
Oh my god! Holy crap! That's amazing. Did you get that from Marvel Studios or did you make it yourself?
No,
like, how do you get all this stuff?
I just got that on eBay and then got a bunch of labels, and we talked to Kate and she was like, could you make the coffee be from 800 BC? And we were like, sure. That's a strange request, but you got it.
Amazing.
So yeah, there's all kinds of, you know, we got this, we got, you know, the water cooler. There's all kinds of little, like, this is from Autumn Archipaw's credit, the actual
I love
camera with the ISO meters and things like that. I mean, I've got a pretty decent amount of like props and things that could be, you know.
Oh my god!
It all just like lives in his basement now, and like it's cool. So you know, a lot of that stuff we're making on our own. Of course, it's talking to Marvel all the time, and you know, we get to watch the shows and see kind of all the set design and things, but then it becomes this constant communication of, you know, what do you like? Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this? And like Greg saying that, you know,
I've received so much from Greg right now. He's just doing like a fashion show.
I know, it's great. I'm just gonna narrate over it.
Guys, I got something here. This might be the one here. This might be the one.
Oh, what is it? Is it going to be, there it is.
Oh, wow. The original L1130 fingerprints. That's amazing. That's so cool that you get to keep it.
I made all this stuff and it's just been in my office. I like printed it out and it's sat here ever since we shot it. So it's I hope that it just stays here. You know,
we've shot a few of these things. There's sometimes we have to give the props back. Sometimes when we make the props ourselves, we get to keep them.
And you must have a Mind Stone. You got to have an Infinity Stone paperweight somewhere.
I got that. Right? I got that right here.
Is it plugged in? It's recharging.
Yeah,
it's plugged in.
You mean this guy?
Oh wow.
These are like little like because they're out of focus in the sequence. You don't really see that how low quality these are. These are like very low-fi, like little. They look like little like gummy candies, actually.
Yeah.
What is it made? Is it fiberglass? What is that made out of?
It's like plastic, basically. It's like rubber plastic.
Okay. Yeah, it's plastic with an LED
with an LED inside it. It blinks and things like that. You push on it, and like out of focus on a paperweight, like in the foreground, you're like, it's an Infinity Stone.
Sure.
Yeah, and then we doctor it in post. We add a little more glow, a little more lens flare to it, make it a little more magical. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, this is something I try my best. And I mean, I'm not a visual effects artist. I don't really make props outside of like some really crappy paper mache stuff I used to make for my sketch team. So when I like see this stuff, show up in movies and television shows, I really try to illuminate that to viewers, because I think what makes Loki special, and I think a lot of viewers sense this, they just might not know the detail, is that it really is a collaborative effort. So much at Marvel is like a previs, concept art, vision brought to life through animation, which can be beautiful sometimes, as we saw with Yggdrasil, in the final episode of the season. But in other ways, you do have some really talented artists like you guys who are just putting their all into this, and it shows up on camera. There's a tactility to Loki that you don't always see in Marvel titles, and you can like see the artist's fingerprints on stuff. Sometimes in macroscopic imagery, sometimes literally smudges and fingerprints on things, and that's what brings it to life. And I just kudos, all the credit in the world goes to you guys for bringing this to life.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was one of the things we wanted to bring into this, because like you said, you watch the show, like they're really shooting on these gorgeous sets, and we didn't want to have a sequence, and obviously I say we, Marvel, us, Kate here and the directors and everyone, didn't want to have this title sequence that didn't feel like it was a part of the show, right? And if we did a big CG kind of fly through of the world, it wouldn't feel like what the show is. And I think it's a testament to them that season 1 and season 2 feel so cohesive that essentially the same title sequence with a little bit of updates in it works for both seasons. And that's because I think we made it so tactile. You can hold everything, you can feel all of it. And that really fits with what they did.
Yeah, there's just a weight to it that's really great. Yeah. And one of the things I didn't realize, and this is something that I saw in our video analyses, was this device of the loom clock. This is on the loom observation deck, aka the loom room. I didn't know if it was like an atomic clock, but at some point I see that and I'm like, 616, and I lose my mind. And then so we try to find the highest quality version of the episode, and I look at all the other numbers and I'm like, okay, damn it, there's no 838, there's no 1610. Like, okay, so I gotta ask you guys, you constructed this loom clock? This was your idea? Like, tell me about this loom clock.
The loom clock was in the episode. Like, that's a prop that Marvel brilliantly crafted. I love that prop. I think that prop is like, it caught my eye right away. And I think it's because of the design. It's like a bubble. And it's not like a flat clock you would see in the TVA. It's like this very specific, strange bubble. And I'm like, that design is just so cool. And I'm like, we need to recreate that in CG. And because we did a clock, we did a CG clock for, season 1 with all the like different hands. And you know how you called out, like one of them was green and was going backwards. And I'm like, you nailed it, dude. Okay. but then, we wanted to reprise that idea for season 2. And we were like, oh, we can't just make another clock. Let's make this cool ass, like multi-dimensional clock that, I can also give away another little Easter egg. It turns out what we decided to do was the artwork from the clock made its way to being on the record player and on the record album artwork.
Nice.
So like if you look at the album artwork and what's on the actual record playing, you'll realize that it's actually referencing the clock, the multiversal clock. And we thought that was really cool because it deteriorates as the episode deteriorates. And then, of course, episode 6, it's like everything's back to normal.
Yeah, that was really cool. So,
yeah,
people have had time to watch it. But yeah, spoiler for everything as of Loki season 2 finale. Yeah, I'm looking at the record player here. You have all the same numbers, the same kind of color coding. That's really, really cool. So do you think that's like an indicator of what the hell this loom clock is measuring? Is it like a measurement of like time's cyclical nature, a measurement of stability of the loom?
Yeah, I think so. It's something that, as much as I would love to be like, we're in there every day and we know all the secrets of like the stuff we're working with. Like at some point it's like, here's a cool clock, let's use that. But I think our interpretation of it is that like putting that back on the record player, I think you're right. Like it represents sort of the cyclical nature, how they're kind of going around and around, especially, at the end, like Loki's revisiting moments that are in the show, and you kind of get that repeating nature that you'd see on a record player, on a clock, and try to tie all those things together.
We had there was like a record that was blank that needed artwork, and we needed album artwork. So we're like, what is it going to be? And I was like, well, it's like a clock. I mean, we're working in like cyclical, like spinning patterns. It's a no-brainer to make it a clock. So we had slugged in some initial like kind of grandfather clock, old school, like clock kind of imagery to be like, yeah, it's a clock. It's time. We're dealing with time. And then through the process, it just evolved that we were like, it would be really cool if it was the multiversal clock that we designed in CG. So we were like, let's make that the album artwork. So that's how it happened.
I love that. There's like all kinds of little details that are in the closing credits of things that, we see from season 2, episode 1, but don't pay off until episode 5 of the season. Like the Zartan contingent book.
Yes.
Is that something Marvel provided you?
Yes.
Did you have to recreate that book?
No. That's a Marvel thing. But
okay.
We were like apprehensive to put it in because we were like, is this, there's that fine line between like, are we creating like a potential stir online that could lead to a spoiler in some way? Or is this such a subtle detail that it'll pay off in a perfect way for audiences? So we're just trying to always walk that line of like, well, we don't necessarily want to give it away, but we also would love to set up a reveal or set up a payoff. And I feel like that Zartan contingent is a total payoff because when you see it and you're like, yeah, it's on Key's card and you're like, what the hell's that? I don't know. But then when you get to it, you're like, oh, now it makes sense. We've been watching this all along and with zero context. So sometimes it feels good to have those payoffs.
And one of the things that we constantly talk about here is we want our title sequences to wear in, not wear out. And I think that idea is that you can watch the Zartan contingent and see the whole episode, the whole season, and it's not until you get to the end and you revisit that title sequence again that you're like, oh, that's been in there the whole time. That's been there. Now you're picking out things that on first watch meant nothing, but episode 2, there's a few scenes that mean a little more. In episode 3, there's a few scenes that mean a little more. And, we're very well aware that people skip title sequences as much as it breaks my heart. I'm very well aware that happens. So what we try and do is put stuff in there that evolves and change, whether we are literally changing it throughout the episodes, which we do in Loki with adding new things every episode, or if it just changes kind of narratively because now you have more information. This idea of it, the sequence wears in, it becomes something that you wanna watch, not something that you're like, I'm done with that.
Yeah. Agreed. I hope that at least like people who are on YouTube following this stuff know not to ever skip through the credits, especially with Marvel, because you never know when a random post-credit scene is going to pop up.
Yeah.
What drives me crazy, we're tangenting here, but like it drives me crazy how streaming platforms will, after like the work you guys have done, and we've just gone into the standard black field, white text, they will minimize it and be like, next episode. I'm like, no. I want to see every artist. I want to see every musician who worked on this, everybody in business legal affairs at Disney Corporate. Like, I want to see everyone. Because for my job, like, I want to, like, sometimes it'll be like additional voices by, and like, you'll hear like, oh, Sam Witwer did a voice on this episode.
What does that mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's something that I think, oddly enough, like that my mom kind of instilled in me. Every time we go to a movie, we would sit through all the credits long before I was doing this stuff. And my mom was like, well, that's someone else's son or daughter who worked on this movie, and we should see the names. And like, so I always stay through the credits before doing any of this. And then as I was wanting to like get into this industry, staying through the credits was like, oh, what company worked on this? Well, who was that? What'd they do? What'd they do? And then I'm like, all right, now I got a list of places I can work for. So like, I love, for you, it's Easter egg stuff. For me, it's like, who are the people in the studios and the work. But everyone should stay through credits. It's a long tangent, but stay through credits.
I think that's great parenting. And if for no other reason than to give yourself like just a few minutes to think about the movie and the experience you just had. Like, I think that's really the thing. Like it's kind of like after a workout and you just need like kind of a moment in the sauna just to kind of chill out.
That's a perfect metaphor for it too. The other thing, like I do the same thing with my kids and I make them sit through the credits, but we get a little bit more like I show them, I go, look guys, this whole first batch is production. That means it's everybody that worked on the shooting of the movie. And then they'll go, okay, is production done? I'm like, yep, visual effects is starting. I'm like, this is the people that got to work on the movie after it was shot. This is all the people that do on the computer, all that magic. And then they go, where's your stuff? And I go, it's at the very, very end.
Tiny little thing right there.
Tiny little moment.
Get comfortable.
Get comfortable. Exactly. It's cool though. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I do the same thing with my kids and now they have come to respect it. Okay, end of the tangent. We can move on.
Yeah.
Yes. Big holiday feasts aren't just about what's on the table. They're about the whole experience, the company, the decorations, the vibe, for lack of a better word. Running an online business is similar. Offering a quality product isn't enough. You want to make sure things are just right. And for that, there's Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that provides you with everything you need to do whatever you need with your website. Squarespace has templates and designs for pretty much everything. So even if you're making your very first website, using Squarespace makes it super easy to customize your look, update content, and add features to fit your unique needs. For instance, Squarespace makes it easy to sell merch. You can design your products, then save time and money by letting Squarespace handle production, inventory, and shipping. And if you're selling any other kind of physical goods, digital goods, or even a service, Squarespace makes it easy to build your storefront and grow your business. To check it out for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/newrockstars to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. I want to ask about, okay, so we talked about how the loom clock, I love this detail that it was cracked, and then episode 6, it's fixed again. And another thing that you pointed out was how after episode 4, the rhythm and the speed of the closing credits reflects the ending of episode 4, which ends with Victor Timely getting spaghettified, and that you guys intentionally did that to just give the viewer what we're just talking about, like a moment to kind of like think about and reflect upon what happened. But I want to know from you guys, how much did you know about what was coming from episode 5, from episode 6, before you made that decision?
We saw we saw all the episodes in advance, and that's where we were able to understand that we could actually deconstruct the title sequence itself by episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that came from, was just Marvel being transparent and saying, hey, get your eyes on this stuff and watch these episodes so you can contribute creatively appropriate material and appropriate creative that fits the show.
One of the great things about season 2, since we had done season 1, and before season 1 started, we didn't know what the idea was for the title sequence, right? And then we all come to this idea. We have this great title sequence. Going into season 2, they shot things specifically for the title sequence. They were on these incredible sets, and they'd know, oh, let's get a close-up of it, like the Zartan contingent. Let's get a close-up of this thing because that'll be great to put in the title sequence. Let's get a close-up of that. And so, it made our lives a lot easier to now have stuff that was shot specifically for the title sequence. Like it was always a part of it from the beginning that, season 2, this title sequence would be what it was. And so the short answer is yes, we got to know what was going to happen beforehand, before we started making the thing, which absolutely helps to know we can plant a seed in episode 1 that'll pay off in episode 6. And it's just
nice.
It's really helpful to have that, because we don't want to make a title sequence that only works for episode 1. And then you get to episode 2 and you're like, wait, that's not the show that this is, right? So we kind of want to see everything so we can try and make something that fits for the whole sequence.
Yeah, we were very inspired by like The Simpsons, because that title sequence changes, and we love the idea that like the couch is always this updated thing. And so I think we're like maybe taking and pulling some inspiration from that concept that, maybe we could inject our own, version of that into some of this Marvel work that we're doing, and keep people, like Doug's saying, it's like we're trying to make you kind of break into the title, not push away from it, but kind of realize that there's layers flavored and layered to kind of keep you coming back. So ultimately that's the hope and the dream.
That idea started in when we had done WandaVision. Every episode, as you know, is a very different feel. Like episode 1 is, black and white, and then you get to like 90s and 2000s. So like every episode feels so different. And we needed a way into our sequence which doesn't feel anything like the rest of the show. And we had done that by that first few shots being clips from the show we just watched. I'm like, well, we got to change this every episode now, right? Because every episode, and that kind of started this snowball of like, now every time we do one of these, we're like, oh, what can we change this time? What can we change for Loki? What can we change for WandaVision or any other sequences? So if you go back to any of the ones we've done, it's always, and I think it's just become a thing with Marvel now that they like to do with the TV shows, is that the sequence is always different a little bit in some way.
Okay. Between Loki and WandaVision, specifically WandaVision, like in January, February 2021, just the way those episodes ended, like anytime I think back on it, I get shivers down my spine. Just the like the creepy Rosemary's Baby music and the visuals, the digital stuff turning into like flowers and crap. Like, guys, that was like such a huge part of my life for like two months. And like maybe it's just Agatha coming back. That's
I loved it. It's one of my favorites that we've done, and I think that is not just in the content that we made for it, not just in the visuals, but just the whole process. That was the first title sequence we had done from start to finish during the pandemic remotely at home, and that's early pandemic. We're pitching this thing, we're doing production on it. I really like the idea behind that. And it's something that we bring into Loki as well, that the sequence itself is the narrative of the show. If you go back and watch the sequence, we are outside the world watching TV. We move into this pixel world that is now Wanda has created her world out of pixels. We're seeing the family life that she's created. We're seeing it all fall apart and crumble. And we're ending at just the 2 wedding rings, which is what the whole thing's been about the whole time, is her and Vision. And so when you go back and watch that, that's the narrative of the show, right? That is, we don't know what's going on in the first few episodes. Now we're in this TV world and it's all falling apart. It's the same thing with Loki, that, you know, you're watching it and you don't really know what's happening. And then as the sequences progress, they're getting deteriorated. Like the TVA is getting deteriorated. By episode 5, our whole sequence is falling apart and like the letters are moving out of order, and you know, the lines are kind of bending
falling into order.
Falling into that order. Like things are deteriorating. And then episode 6, it's all, you know, perfect and fixed again. And so we're trying to bring some narrative that, if you like, it's in an abstract way, it's not giving away the show, but you know, as you go back and watch, like, oh wait, that's the structure of the show. That's what it did.
One of the really helpful things you guys did was design these like labels for whether we were on the sacred timeline or the branched timeline. Because often, I think you guys might know this, you'll watch a Marvel show and there's just like clearly not great communication, and there'll just be some random like title text on screen, and it's like, wait, that doesn't fit with the timeline, or that doesn't make logical sense. This is like one show where I felt like I was in good hands. I was like, okay, yes, someone is helping us. But you guys added, every time it was branched, different places on the, like, or different parts of it that were branching off. How did you make those decisions? Like, was there anything you were trying to communicate with that?
It started like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we actually put branches and had branches on the graphic itself that actually start to change and grow and evolve through the course of the narrative? And that would just fit with the way that the loom is like slowly, you know, overloaded more and more. And so I felt like that was the start of it. And then once, you know, our awesome showrunner, Kevin Wright, he's such a cool dude. And he was so on board with like all of our wacky ideas. And that's what made it so cool, was that like, we would be like, here's something a little more like controversial and outlandish, but could be cool. And he's like, I love that idea. That's awesome. And we're like, yes. So yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with Marvel being cool enough to like be open to some of these wackier ideas that we have, where it could just be straightforward, it could be streamlined, but it's way cooler if you have like branch timelines that are different every time. And like every time you see one of the branch timelines, it is specifically different. Like we went out of our way to make sure that we're not just repeating the same configuration of branches, but it's always a new configuration of branches.
Yeah, and I think in just a very practical sense, it's a quick way to tell people you're on a branch timeline or you're on the sacred timeline. And that's also, you know, where it starts from too, because there's so much jumping back and forth, that we needed a quick, easy read. And it kind of became this like, here's a weird idea. Oh, it also happens to be a quick read. Even if you can't even read anything, you see a graphic of a branch timeline or a straight timeline, like, oh, I know where those are. It's got to have multiple layers to it. It can't just be cool. It also has to have a reason for why it looks like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our audience, it's like we try to make things as iconic as possible so that the quick read can just be visual a lot of times. So I feel like what you're saying, Doug, is absolutely a great point. It's like this idea that we need to like be able to flash something on screen and assume that like 70% of the people are not gonna get it or see it or read it, but there's probably most people will. And if we have something visually to kind of like back that up, then it's just that much more of a handhold or a shove in the right direction to kind of get them like, oh, okay, it's a branch. Got it. We saw the branches, got it. So it's like these little things that do a lot of the heavy lifting visually. But that's
at some point it's less important that it's 1983 and it's more important that it's a branch timeline.
Yo, for sure. For sure. But the fact that it is still like the early 80s versus the late 70s versus the 1890s, I do like that you provided that diversity of each different branch so that it lets the viewers know that we are literally on a different branch.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like the same branch that we were on in the 80s. This is like a whole different kind of universal reality that we're in.
And the other thing we added to it as well, which I don't know if most people picked up on, but when we go into the future, the branch goes to the right, and when we go to the past, the animation moves to the left. So you also get that movement left to right that you're like, oh, I get it. I know which one it is.
That's really cool. Now I have to go back and watch that because I totally did not catch that. That's so cool. So like in the future, like on like
Lamentis, is in
something to beyond us.
Something beyond now it goes. So it wasn't so much, we didn't want to tie it to like the show in like a future time of the show, because the future time of the show is going to be like I don't know, if you watch this in 10 years, like that's still now the past. So it's anything that's like far beyond in the future, it kind of, it goes one way or the other, depending on if we're jumping forward or backwards.
I like, you're gonna have some people in 2080 who are like, wait a minute, this no longer is oriented for me.
Erik, I'm so sorry. I need to hop out of here.
Okay,
but I can stay on.
Thanks so much, Doug, and thanks for making time for us. It was amazing talking to you.
Yeah,
thanks,
it was amazing talking to you too. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, I just have 2 more things I want to ask you about. You also worked on the star map in the Marvels, and there was different like planetary names, and we started to see a couple of them in the breakdown that we did of that movie, where like each initial was someone's name, and then the number was someone's birthday, right?
That's true. That's
of
correct.
Your team, of the Perception team.
Yeah, you nailed it.
So we saw Veronica Gale. Your name is in there. There's like a GH something.
That's I'm GH528. That's my initials and birth date. You might see a PF 919 in there, which is one of our artists, Pedro Fleming, who worked on it. I believe there might be an ED for Eric Daly, our head of production. There's probably a JL or I believe maybe a DG, which would be Jeremy Lasky or Danny Gonzalez, our owners, the owners of Perception. So my favorite one of those is in 2014, Captain America Winter Soldier. There is that Hydra sequence that reveals. So I edited that and designed that and got to do that sequence. And there is a ton of Easter eggs in that one. And there's a shot that you'll see Arnim Zola mixed in with a bunch of Project Paperclip scientists.
Yeah.
Well, the Russo brothers just loved that clip, but we couldn't get the rights to it. We couldn't license it. So we were like, yeah, sorry, we can't use this clip. Production was like, why don't you guys just be all the faces on the Project Paperclip scientists? So we became like, you can see like all of our eyes, nose, and mouth gets cut out and put on the Project Paperclip scientists amongst Zola.
Amazing.
So yeah, if you see that like kind of like shining push in where we like bump into like Arnim Zola in 2014's Winter Soldier, you pause that shot, you'll see Dog, you'll see me. Actually, I'm in there twice. I'm on 2 different heads, but it's like,
oh my God,
our whole office got in that shot. Everyone in our office is actually a member of Project Paperclip. Our art director, Christian Haberkern, who has been with us the whole time, also worked on Winter Soldier. I put his name as the author of the article that wrote. So he's the one that wrote the article about, Howard Stark. And somewhere in Marvel Wiki, somehow, Christian Haberkern is a Marvel Wiki character who is a writer.
He's got a page.
He's got a page as the writer of the newspaper article. So I'm perpetuating that idea, and I'm continuing to put Christian Haberkern in all of my newspaper clippings for every other title sequence that I've ever done.
At some point, there's going to be like a plot line where there's a reporter who is like gunning for Peter Parker's job or something like that. Or he's like, I need new art for this. It's like, Christian, stop being so demanding.
Exactly.
It's a Daily Bugle reporter. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love seeing this kind of stuff. And I love like, the famously Ernest Cline in Ready Player One kind of points out the history of like the very first Easter egg in a video game is just like an artist or a video game developer who was like pissed that the owners of the company didn't like credit him. So like I think that's kind of like my favorite kind of Easter egg is seeing like the artists be like, hey, we worked on this too, and putting their little like stamps on stuff to like become part of the world. Because, and I don't think, obviously, Kevin Wright, the studios are all for this kind of thing.
I think what's funny is that like there's a community of the people that are working on all this stuff and just pouring our hearts and souls into it. But we watch what you do and we go, hell yeah, dude, that is insane. Like we're putting all this stuff down. Like when you did your breakdown for episode 1, I was so impressed because I put in all this stuff that I thought no one would ever know about. Like I put in all this stuff about like, I wrote all of these and I was like, oh dude, no one's ever going to know. No one's ever going to see this stuff. Like I put in Schrodinger's cat. I put in like all kinds of stuff. Like I put in Nikola Tesla vortex math and specifically in vortex math, 9 is the God number in Vortex Math. So I put all this, and this is just stuff that I'm personally into, but I feel like it relates to the TVA. So it's like, it makes sense and it's really cool. And it's like the Marvel MCU has touched on this stuff plenty of times. So I was like, it's appropriate to put, you know, these quantum physicists and these ideas of quantum mechanics into this thing. So my point is that like, I'm sitting here watching you and I'm like, I can't believe this guy like figured it all out. I was blown away, man. When I first
I don't know if I figured it all out. I appreciate that.
Figured out way more than I was just like, wow. So
I just saw this stuff and I was like, someone built this. Someone printed this out and wrote it. And it's so cool, Greg, to meet the person who did. I feel like I've had some closure now. This has been incredible.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy to actually have a chance to chat with you about this, because I put your breakdown on my website and I was like, you know, so like I felt so grateful that you went and did the deep dive and found all those nuggets of little Easter eggs that I put in. And it was so gratifying to know, but also a little terrifying, because I was like, oh my God, like someone actually picked up on every little detail that I thought no one would ever care about and see. So ever since that Loki breakdown has come out from season 1, I've been like hyper aware. And I think that's now like why we're often saying like, I wonder if Erik Voss will find this little nugget of information. So that's why you often come up these days as of late. So
yeah, I won't always find it, but I will always be looking. I'll promise that. I'll always keep my eye of Sauron on everything that I can.
You're doing a good job of it, man. It's working.
Well, thank you so much for these compliments, and thank you for all the work that you guys are doing, because this is like, it means so much to the viewership, to the fan base, just to see artists working so hard to put in all these little details, and it really elevates the viewing experience, and it means a lot to us. So thank you, and great work. Keep up the great work on everything that you do.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, it's our pleasure, and I know we do it for the fans, and we do it for you guys. We do it for everybody that cares and that takes the time to look through the stuff and actually appreciate it. That's what means the world and what makes it all worthwhile. So, and thanks for chatting today. It's been great to finally meet you and chat about this and about the Loki stuff.
Greg, I'll let you get back to your day. This has been incredible. Thank you so much to both of you guys. This is a wonderful chat, and to everyone, check out the great work of Perception. They go into even more details on their website of the stuff that they've made. And yeah, I'll be going back to look at a lot of stuff that you guys have worked on. This has been an amazing chat. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to the full New Rockstars Network channels, and we'll see everyone next time. Have a happy holidays, everybody. And thanks, Greg.
Thanks, man. Later, guys.